Hey everybody, welcome to another day of Science Notes. Today we're going to categorize our science vocabulary based on words that we're very familiar with and know the meaning of versus words we need to study. So I want you to take a look at your science notes and I want you to shade these properties of matter green if you know the word very well and you can explain it, define it, and give examples of it. So for example, the word color, I know refers to something's shade or tone. It's something you can observe with your eyes, and examples are green, red, blue, etc. So I understand color really well, I can define it, I can talk about it, I can give examples of it. Shape, I know that one really well as well. I can talk about something being round, something being flat, one-dimensional, two-dimensional. I can think about shape in terms of the words that I've learned in math class, like if something is a three-dimensional object and I can hold it in my hands, it has height, width, and length. So shape is something I understand really well. Then I'm going to look for words that I don't understand very well. And the words that I'm going to define for you today, I'm kind of just predicting these are the ones you need a refresher on. We're going to talk about density, so we're going to highlight that one yellow. Flexibility and elasticity. Mass we'll talk about. And temperature. Okay, so I've taken some notes already so that you guys wouldn't have to sit and watch me write today. My suggestion is, as I go over these notes, pause the video so that you can write down the information yourself. Remember, this is all information that I'm going to be covering on our test on Friday. So write this information down and keep it handy because your test is an open notes test. Temperature is the degree of hotness or coldness of a substance. We're really familiar with measuring temperature in terms of heat or cold. Like if your mom takes your temperature in the morning to see if you're sick, she's measuring how hot your body is related to what it normally is. And typically in the United States, when we measure temperature, we tend to use the degree of Fahrenheit. And that's just, Fahrenheit is a unit of measurement that's named after the scientist who started using that unit of measurement first. But you can also measure temperature in other units, including Celsius, which is a unit of measurement used in a lot of other countries, and also kelvins, which is a unit of measurement that you'll use as you get older, especially if you take chemistry or physics. You might measure things in kelvins. In addition to measuring heat and coldness, temperature is also the average kinetic energy of the moving particles in a substance. So that this is the part you need to pause and copy this down. Okay, right here. Temperature is the average kinetic energy of the moving particles of a substance. Meaning, if we go back to this diagram here and we think about the atoms that make up every type of matter, if the atoms are moving very quickly, typically things will have a higher temperature. If the atoms are moving slowly, typically that substance will have a lower temperature. So I should have made myself some space for this, but I can add it down at the bottom. I'm going to make myself, kind of looks like a number line. And down at the bottom, we have lower temperatures. Like think of, the temperature of an icicle or the temperature of your soda that you got at McDonald's that has ice in it, things that are cold. Lower temperatures, the atoms in those substances move slower. Higher temperatures, like if you boil water for some macaroni and cheese, the water in the pot the temperature gets higher and higher and higher as the atoms in the water move faster and faster. So temperature is a measure of how fast the atoms in something move, and the way that we're able to measure that is by how hot or cold it is. Density is another property of matter that we're going to review today. Density is a way of measuring how much space an object or substance takes up, and we call that its volume, in relation to the amount of matter in the substance. So that is something you need to copy down. Typically, when something has a higher density, it weighs more, so it will be heavier. In science, we test something called the relative density of an object. Relative density refers to whether something will sink or float in water. So when you test something in water, whether it sinks or floats, you're testing whether the density of that object is higher or lower than that of the water. So on Friday, when we make our moon dough, we're gonna take a small little piece of the dough and we're gonna roll it up in our hands and drop it in a cup of water and see if it sinks or floats. And if it sinks, that means it has a higher density than the water. If it floats, that means it has a lower density than the water. Flexibility and elasticity, that's a mouthful. Let me show you that. This refers to whether something can bend, stretch, or twist easily. So it's the way of measuring how far something can be stretched, bent, or twisted before it breaks. The opposite of something being flexible, you would say it's very brittle. This word here, brittle. So if something is brittle, it means when you try to bend it, it's gonna snap easily or break easily. Okay, and then the last word that I wanted to review with you, I had actually already defined in my notes, which is mass. Oh, we talked about mass. A way of measuring how much matter is in something. And remember, we said that mass is different from weight. Mass does not change. The amount of matter that's in something isn't going to change whether you're here or on the moon. But the weight of that substance or the weight of that object can change based on what the gravity is like in your location. Okay, so these are some properties of matter that we can test this week when we're doing our different experiments. If there are any others on this paper that you don't understand or need me to define, you can send me a message and I will make sure I talk about it in my next video.